right, there's a breaking news that's coming in at this point. DNA tests which were underway by Israel. The results, at least Israel seems to be claiming at this point that Hamas chief Yahya has been killed. That's the information that we are getting in terms of the claims by Israeli foreign minister. That's a big confirmation that we are getting. A big confirmation that's coming in at this point. Hamas chief Yahya has been eliminated. I'm being joined by my colleague Shreya Upadhyay at this point. Shreya Upadhyay, this really is a very big claim by Israel, considering Yahya is seen as somebody who really orchestrated the attack on October 7th.
Sneha, it's not a claim anymore. We've just got the confirmation from Israeli Defense Forces that Yahya Sinwar has indeed been eliminated by the Israeli Defense Forces. We're also expecting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to make a public statement on it anytime soon now. But so far, this news being confirmed that the mastermind of the 7th October Hamas attack has now been eliminated in Israeli airstrikes. Remember, this evening, a big claim came in from the Israeli Defense Forces that they are still probing the identity of the 3 terrorists who had been killed in the Israeli airstrike in the Gaza Strip at a building which was being shielded as a school, but it was actually a hideout of Hamas terrorists. Now that confirmation coming in that Israeli forces have indeed killed the mastermind of the 7th October Hamas attack, that is Yahya Sinwar, somebody who was also seen as a successor of Ismail Haniyeh, who had been killed by Israel earlier. Now, that big breaking news coming in at the moment from West Asia, that Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind of the 7th October Hamas attack, being eliminated by Israeli forces. This, remember, Sneha, is a huge win for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He has been saying that Israel will not back off from this war until every person who's responsible for the October 7th attack is eliminated. That target of Israel has now been, reached. One of the main culprits, in fact, the mastermind, the man who orchestrated this entire Hamas attack on Israel, has now been killed by Israeli Defense Forces.
Right. In fact, Shreya, what we are also being told at this point, and this is important, that Yahya Sinwar was somebody who used, or at least there was a point when Israel claimed that he was in bunkers and he used the hostages as a human shield. Eventually, Israel went on to say that there was nothing like this. They could not find any evidence around it. However, Yahya Sinwar, for that matter, has been a major target for Israel. Now, with this confirmation coming in that he has been killed, this essentially, what does this now mean for the ongoing war?
This is the pertinent question that now everybody has their eyes on, Sneha. What will happen to the war? Because remember, when the 7th October Hamas attack was carried out by Hamas on Israel, the main aim of Israeli leadership, the Israeli administration and the Israeli security forces was to eliminate those who are responsible for the attack, for the killing of Israeli citizens and Israeli security forces, as well as the hostages that have been taken into Gaza, their release. But now all eyes on how this war will unfold, because remember, Israeli forces have eliminated Hezbollah's top leadership and their replacement. Now Israeli leadership has also eliminated one by one the top leadership of Hamas. First Ismail Haniyeh was killed, then Saifuddin was killed, and now the mastermind, the man himself who was the target since day one of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has now been been killed. Yahya Sinwar has been eliminated. Now, how this war unfolds is something that we'll have to wait and watch, because on one hand, it might lead to the demotivation of the Hamas cadre, considering that their top leadership has been eliminated. They'll have to look for successors to Yahya Sinwar. Remember, he was the successor to Ismail Haniyeh. Now he has been killed. They will have to look for a successor, for somebody to lead the entire group. Whether it demotivates them or pushes them for further escalation, that is something we'll have to wait and watch. Clearly, the inclination is towards the fact that this will lead to a wider escalation. Hamas trying to take revenge. Of course, it's not just Hamas, remember, who is fighting against Israel. It's the Houthis and Hezbollah as well. And we'll have to wait and watch how they come together and and sort of escalate this further. But remember, West Asia clearly remains on the edge, because the war remains uncertain as to which way it will go. It also, Sneha, points to the fact, in fact, to the other concern, that what will happen to the hostages now. Remember, there are about 102 hostages, Israeli hostages, with the Hamas group. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has been saying that we will not stop until every hostage is released from Hamas, from Gaza, from Palestine. And now this also points to the fact about what happens to them, whether, their lives are put in danger more and more, considering now Hamas will want to take a revenge, or Prime Minister Netanyahu will be able to have a successful negotiation to have them back into Israel. Sneha.
Right. Shreya, I'm also being joined by Srinjoy at this point, but just give me a minute before we go over to Srinjoy. Very quickly, I believe Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to be addressing the media anytime soon. Could you just very quickly give us the details on that?
Sneha, we just got information a short while back that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be making a public statement in the next hour. But we can expect it anytime soon, because the Israeli Foreign Minister has confirmed the killing. The Israeli Defense Forces have put out a tweet. They've posted on social media platform X that Yahya Sinwar has been eliminated. So anytime soon now, the world will get to hear Prime Minister Netanyahu finally making that official announcement that we have been waiting for since the IDF said that Yahya Sinwar might have been eliminated. So anytime soon, Sneha, we can expect that statement to come in from Israel.
Right. Shreya Upadhyay, thank you very much for joining us. Allow me to just very quickly go over to Srinjoy at this point. Srinjoy, a big moment, really. There's been months of uncertainty. There's been months of escalating tension, of missiles, counter launchers, and so on and so forth. It's been extremely dangerous times. But now a confirmation coming in that Yahya Sinwar has been killed. He has been killed. That's the information that Israel is sharing. Israel is confirming. Prime Minister Netanyahu himself likely to do a press conference. Just how strikingly huge, really, Srinjoy, is this?
Israel has been fighting for 53 weeks. And one of the reasons why it has been fighting all this while, it has to be remembered that they've taken huge casualties themselves, is because of the man who died fighting today, who was killed today, and the man who was responsible for October 7. If there was no October 7, if there were no October 7, then there would be no fighting for the last 53 weeks, to put it very simply as possible. And in these 53 weeks, thousands of Israelis have died, many more Palestinians have died, a huge amount of trouble has been caused. The Hezbollah has gotten, the Houthis have gotten. It's been a huge mess, primarily because of Yahya Sinwar. And now the Israelis have declared that he is dead. Now, it has to be said that it wasn't easy. It's taken Israel 53 weeks. And one reason was that Yahya Sinwar was very careful about where he was, what kind of communications he had, and all of that. So if the Israelis have got him, it's actually number one, a successful intelligence operation. Before you strike, you have to know where he is. And they were able to know where he was before they struck. So it's a success in terms of intelligence. It's a success in terms of a military operation. Now the next question, and this has already come up, what happens? Do the Hamas people get disoriented and generally feel that it's about to end, at least temporarily, all the hostilities? Maybe will they end up giving up some of the hostages? Will they do anything else? These are things that will have to
Right.
be seen. How does this
Absolutely, Shrinjoy, do stay on with us because we're also being joined at this point by Adam Scott Bellos, who is the CEO for Israel Innovation Fund. And Shreya Upadhyay, of course, has been reporting this and has been following this very closely. But first, let me just go across quickly to Adam Scott. Adam, how are the reactions coming in? How is Israel looking at this? How is Israel responding to this big confirmation that is coming in from the Israel top officials, ministers?
Hi, thank you for having me once again. It's always a pleasure to be here. Everybody is rather elated in the news. This is very similar to the feeling of when the heads of Hezbollah, one after the other, were taken out, as well as the attack on the former head of Hamas's diplomatic corps in Iran. I do believe that it's quite jovial, but at the same time, I think people are wondering and asking the question, what comes next after this? And what does this mean for the remaining hostages that are still in Gaza? And what will this mean for Iran and the Houthis as well? We've been systematically working to dismantle Hamas for the last year, and that has been quite successful, in my opinion, given the time that it's taken and the methodological approach that Netanyahu and the army have decided to move with, especially given the overall success that has happened all over the region on the different fronts that Israel's been fighting. So I do think this is it's an interesting situation that we're in, and a lot of questions. I think we're going to have a lot more questions than we do answers, if that makes sense.
That's true. That's absolutely true, particularly at this point. Shreya Upadhyay, if I can come to you, and this is important in a way because at the end of the day, let's remember, this is Israel that's claiming that Sinwar has been killed. In fact, let's look at the wordings of what Israel has said. The mass murderer, Yahya Sinwar, responsible for the massacre and atrocities of October 7th, was eliminated today by the IDF. That's what Israel has claimed. And it's important, Shreya, to put this in larger perspective because Israel had the records of Yahya Sinwar, who was in Israeli jail till 2011, and he was released in 2011 as part of a prisoners exchange program. That's at least what we are understanding at this point. So they essentially had all the records of Sinwar. Shreya, would you want to speak, give us more details on this?
That's right, Sneha. You know, this is exactly why it was very, very difficult to eliminate Yahya Sinwar because he's somebody who's been known to be operating clandestinely. He was never in the public eye much, and he was usually, you know, that was widely believed that his hideouts were tunnels in the Gaza Strip. And he never came out as much as perhaps other Hamas members. He also is believed to have not been using the modern communication devices that we all use to remain incognito most of the time, so that his whereabouts are not known. And like you earlier said, that he indeed used hostages and, you know, citizens, civilians as human shields and, you know, hid behind them. So there have been, you know, efforts that have been made in the past to eliminate Yahya Sinwar, but those have been unsuccessful. This time around, Israel has managed to get him, somebody who was the mastermind of this entire war that is now taking place, the escalation that took place between Israel and Hamas, the Hamas attack, the mastermind of that. Also, like you mentioned, the prisoner exchange that happened, he has remained for several years in Israeli prisons. Back in 2011 is when he was released. And one of the interesting things is, Sneha, the fact that his own release from the prison was negotiated by himself, along with others, of course, with Israel. So he was one of those people who represented Hamas as a negotiator when there was talks happening for prisoner exchange between Israel and Hamas. So that is the kind of hold that Yahya Sinwar had within the Hamas group, and he has risen quite quickly in the among the ranks of the Hamas terror group. He joined around in 1980s, and since then he's only seen a rise, and that is why, like I said earlier, he was somebody who was known as the natural successor after Ismail Haniyeh to lead the Hamas group. Sneha.
Absolutely, Shreya. In fact, Srinjoy, if I can come to you, Srinjoy, let's just look at the kind of reactions that are coming in. Even as the news was not confirmed, quite honestly, it's just confirmed moments ago. But even before it was confirmed, US had given in a reaction, and US has been an unapologetic ally of Israel, has backed Israel all through. US went on to say, for one, and this is the defense secretary who said, for one, I am not going to be mourning his death. In fact, from what we know is he spoke about the death. Let's look at this. So the US Secretary of State went on to say that the ceasefire deal in Gaza was almost 90% there. The killing of Sinwar could be an opportunity to finally complete the deal and bring Israel's hostages home. Does that indicate which way are we going following this big news that's been confirmed?
Well, if Lloyd Austin has said so, it's very clear that the Americans are in the loop. And if he knows, he obviously knows more than all of us as far as this is concerned, because he would have been one of the first to be told that this has happened. And if there is something going on with the Americans also involved, it would be a very good thing if the ceasefire like tomorrow came back and whatever the deal has to be done is done, and no more innocent people are killed in the future. But is that asking for too much? Is too much? That's really the problem. Are we hoping too much? Because if all this has gone on for 53 weeks and more, then it's very clear that maybe there was things ahead. But if this is an opportunity, and if the US think so, maybe there's something he knows that we don't. And if he does know something, and if there is an opportunity for a breakthrough, for a ceasefire, so many innocent lives will be saved.
In fact, before I go over to a panel, very quickly, Shreya Upadhyay, while we are awaiting Benjamin Netanyahu's response, Israeli president has already gone ahead and given his response on social media. And he's saying, Yahya Sinwar was responsible for the heinous act of terrorism against Israeli civilians, citizens of one of other countries, and the murder of thousands of innocent people. His evil endeavors are dedicated to terror, bloodshed, destabilizing the Middle East. Now more than ever, we must act in every way possible to bring back the 101 hostages who are still being held in horrific conditions by Hamas terrorists in Gaza. Shreya, you've also spoken about this, and Srinjoy also spoke about this. But very quickly, this really seems to be now the next focus for Israel. But we don't have any indications that the aggression or the counter from Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Houthis for that matter, may really ease at this point.
That's right, Sneha. This is something that observers and analysts have feared over the the past 1 year, in fact, more than 1 year that this war has been going on, how it really pans out, how this wider escalation will take place. And these were concerns that increased after Israeli forces eliminated the Hezbollah top leadership, their replacement and the replacement's replacement. So the Israeli forces have been successfully eliminating, what they call Israel's enemies and the proxies of Iran. This time around, of course, Hamas's top leadership has been killed. First it was Ismail Haniyeh, then Saifuddin, and now Yahya Sinwar. Clearly, a lot of concerns about how this will pan out. Like I said earlier, there are concerns how the three H's, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis, will now respond, or will they be demotivated? Will their cadre be demotivated at least for some time till they find, their next step forwards against Israel? But Israel, of course, continuing with its attack against those who have been attacking it and its civilians. But for now, I think the central point, Sneha, should be what happens to the hostages. Concerns there, whether Hamas and Palestine, what they do about it, whether they put their lives more in danger, or Prime Minister Netanyahu is successfully able to negotiate their release, something that he has been saying and reiterating time and again, that we will not stop until every hostage is back home.
That's true. Adam Scott Bellos, do you want to take it on from here? I mean, are you hearing reactions of family members of hostages in Israel? What's the kind of tone and tenor that you are hearing in Israel, Adam? Because from at least the sense that we are getting, a lot of reactions already, a lot of demands, a lot of statements already focusing on the 101 hostages, but a very, very difficult, challenging situation that still remains.
No, rightly so, and that is where everybody's mind is going first. It's exactly where my mind went first. Like I said before, the elimination of Sinwar is a huge deal, given the fact that he was freed from a prisoner exchange years ago when Gilad Shalit was released by Hamas, and the fact that he was the main mastermind of the October 7th massacre. Okay, not only that, he's the one who's been dictating how to deal with Israel to the Qataris vis-a-vis negotiations on these hostages. The only thing that the Israeli people have said since day one, give us back our hostages and we will, stop this war. So is there an opportunity to possibly get a majority of them that are still alive back alive? Possibly. But at the same time, we could be looking at very irrational actors looking to hasten their end days. So, and that's the thing that I'm worried about. Very much worried about irrational behavior from irrational actors. And the one thing that you rely on, irrational actors, is irrational behavior. Now, rationally, after the elimination of so many leaders of Hamas, and especially Sinwar in this way, I truly do believe that this is the time for Hamas to step down, and this is the time for Hamas to surrender. So, I'm not sure what more Israel can do to showcase not only their military superiority, but their ability to dismantle Hamas, dismantle Hezbollah, and eventually dismantle Iran. So I do feel quite bad for the remaining people that are in Gaza, both Palestinian and Israeli hostages, who are living under this tyrannical, eschatological, apocalyptic regime, who needs to surrender at this time. Otherwise, I mean, we're just looking at more death down the line. We're looking at more war. Clearly, Israel is winning this war. Clearly, Israel is doing a very good job at fighting this war. So, that's where I'll leave. It's time for us to let go of this dream that will never come true of the liberation of Palestine. It's something that has led the Middle East down.
Adam Scott, I think we are having some very terrible signal issues, and I hope we'll be able to fix it. Let me allow my team to fix that. But Shreya Upadhyay joins us, and I think Shreya has a question for Srinjoy. Go ahead, Shreya.
Yes, Neha. Srinjoy, we've seen that the America-Israel relationship in the past few weeks has been strained because the U.S. has been asking Prime Minister Netanyahu to not escalate this war. It has been pushing Netanyahu for de-escalation. Netanyahu has also been blamed for not sharing his specific plans as to what he wants to do in the war in the next few steps. But with this elimination, with the elimination of Yahya Sinwar and US officials being informed about it as and when it happened, how do you think America will now respond to this and further have these conversations about the war with Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, first of all through, you would imagine that the intelligence relationship, the passing on of information between the two agencies would have continued. The political relationship, regardless of all the things that President Biden would have told Prime Minister Netanyahu not to escalate and all that, regardless of that, the process of supplying weapons has largely, I'm not saying entirely, but largely been going on. So, yes, America has been asking Prime Minister Netanyahu not to escalate, but it has largely been supportive in terms of delivering of weapons. And I would imagine the two intelligence services have been in touch. Politically, they have been in touch. The Americans would have been briefed about what the Israelis have been doing. And if Lloyd Austin, the defense secretary, is perfectly aware of what is going on, then it's actually more evidence of the fact that the Americans are on top of things. And yes, President Biden has been saying again and again that there should be no escalation. There should be no bringing of Iran and all that. He is also worried that if the war gets wider, it can be more difficult to end. All that is true. But information sharing and also the supply of weaponry has always continued. So that is something the Americans have been doing. And you would imagine, as I said earlier, from what Lloyd Austin has said, that the Americans are on top of things, aware of what is going on.
Srinjoy, also, with this in context, do you think that, Prime Minister Netanyahu cares about the American election verdict at all? There have been talks about how he's looking to how the U.S. election will pan out. But with the kind of steps that the Israeli Defense Forces are taking, do you think Prime Minister Netanyahu will actually wait for a verdict of the U.S. elections?
It's very hard to say these things. First of all, at this point, nobody knows who is going to be the next president of America. I'm not sure anybody in America actually knows who the next president will be or the president elect will be on the 5th or 6th of November. That's the first thing. Also, the things are so close in the election, it's not very clear if any difference will result from the way things are in West Asia. If, of course, there is this huge breakthrough and suddenly there was a ceasefire, maybe there would be a slight difference. But at the way American politics is now, if you're blue, you're blue. If you're red, you're red. The red state is a red state. The blue state is a blue state. And then there are swing states where very, very few thousand people can make a difference. Now, will West Asia make such a difference? Again, nobody knows. Nobody knows these things really. What will change the minds of Americans? Whether West Asia will actually change the minds of those few thousand people who are yet to make up their minds in those 7 swing states. In Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Arizona, and Nevada, and Georgia, and North Carolina. Whether a few thousand people will make up their minds or depending on what Netanyahu does or does not know, nobody knows about it. You can't tell about these things.
Right. Right, Srinjoy, thank you very much for joining us. Shreya Upadhyay as well as Adam Scott Bellos. This is a very big moment, really, as Israel confirms that Yahya Sinwar has been killed. That's all we have for you in this show. Thank you for watching.